someone, I think it's important that I actually achieve something and deliver for our people before I accept that. But I value the sentiment, of course, and your mentorship. And
if a good man is put in a good slot on without safarish, that's a good sign.
Let's see what, inshallah, what I can.
In our culture, so
let's see what I can, inshallah, accomplish. I think many friends in this community of people that have been engaged on this topic for decades now have struggled to have their voice heard in the decision-making space. And so one of my responsibilities is to make sure that these issues, as Arfa rightly pointed out, these are not issues that are front and center in terms of the priorities of any of the emergency issues that any government ever deals with. How can we create more space for these kinds of issues is a personal challenge that I take quite seriously. And it's early days, but I find myself feeling that these are the kinds of things I should be held to account for as time passes. I think the NFC point is a really valuable one. Oftentimes in our development and rights-based discourse, we want to have the cake and we want to eat it too. I can tell you, for example, at the federal level, the Planning Ministry has a section on population. The Health Ministry, National Health Services Ministry, has a section on population. The DG level at the Health Ministry, the chief level at the Planning Ministry. There is a national task force headed by the President. There's a committee headed by the Minister of Planning and co-chaired by Shabana Haider, who is one of our most outstanding thinkers and researchers and practitioners in this space. And I'm sure she was here yesterday and should be here at some point today. And so we have a multiplicity of bodies, and those bodies have emerged because clearly over the years, whether it was the 90s or the early 2000s or the 10s or now the 2020s, there are enough articulate and powerful advocates like Zeba Sattar, like the Dawn Group, that advocate directly with leaders and get them to pay more attention. But unfortunately, the existing structures, and these are structural issues. One is financing, which is a big one, as you know, as everyone knows, given the constraints that the IMF program imposes on Pakistan. Now that's, I think, generally a cop-out, and so I don't want to use it as a cop-out, but it is a reality that the kind of funds that you need for the kind of scale that you need to tackle the economic element of this equation, I think is a difficult one. Similarly, I think in terms of the province and federal relationship, the NFC meeting, inshallah, is scheduled for day after tomorrow. Day after tomorrow is going to be a big day for our country in many ways. I'm very excited that the Chief Minister, inshallah, is going to be in Islamabad. At least that's what I've heard. I hope that ends up being true, inshallah. Fantastic. I think we should have a round of applause. I think anytime we have the country coming together, I think it's for the better. And we'll disagree on 100 things, but let's make sure that on the one or two things we agree on, we actually have traction. So I think on population, you need a national movement. And for that to happen, I think that the conversation around the 26th, 27th, 28th, 29th, 30th Amendment has to be treated with a view to the outcomes that we want for people, rather than, I think, oftentimes the kind of tokenized version of the conversation that I myself have been, I suppose, guilty of participating in and advocating perhaps in the past. I'm very excited that our friend and my brother from KP is here. I don't think it's going to happen just because of getting along. I think the point Arfa mentioned is a brilliant one. We need to revisit how we allocate resources in the country, and if it's only on the basis of population, I think we're in big trouble, but it can't not be at all on the basis of population either. And so figuring out that balance will require give and take between the constituent parts of the Federation. And over time, I think some of the mistakes that we made in 2009, 2010, and 2011, whether it was an excessive focus on judicial activism, whether it was an excessive focus on non-functional provincial autonomy, where it became difficult for the province and the federal government to get along and to come together on issues that require national coordination and coherence, or whether it's internal coherence in and of itself. So the impacts of the Mustafa Impex case and the degree of authority and autonomy and agency that the executive has in terms of deciding on an issue and then executing. Because so often, and again, the Prime Minister is fully committed to this issue. This committee that I mentioned with Shabana Haider and Ehsan Iqbal chairing it was formed by the Prime Minister back in July. And he's fully committed to further, processing of this. But if the federal government's hands are tied...
This is a new committee?
It was formed in July. It's not that new. We've had 2 or 3 meetings. But again...
On population.
On population. And oftentimes, the thing that we run up against is exactly the point Arfa mentioned. The 18th Amendment and the NFC do represent structural challenges. It's a complexity. I don't think that makes the NFC and the 18th Amendment bad, but I don't think that it makes it good either. So I think we need to find a balance where we can not tread on the province's rights, but make sure that on issues where the province and the federation are completely aligned, that we have the money and the executive agency and authority to move quickly. And I think that over the next few months, inshallah, one of the intentions and the attempts will be to coordinate and cohere this executive decision-making sentiment more robustly, inshallah.